Well, the adventure begins. You know, there are times when a painting or drawing a description of an item from the 18th century, it's helpful, but you can't replicate something from just a bare description. We're working on a blacksmith shop and we need a set of bellows, and I want something that really is like what they would have had. On eBay, I have found a set of bellows up in Wisconsin, a 19th century set of bellows. I think they're going to be close enough to really give us those hints that we need. But it's a long drive, and it's going to be adventure when we get there to see what they're like and how are we going to make these? Well, off we go. Okay, no peeking. I think this is definitely going to be worth it. Now another 7 hours home, and then we'll be able to look at it in depth. So I was on the road 14 hours picking this guy up. Now it's time to take a detailed look at what I've got, because I've only just kind of glanced at it. I've got Brandon here with me. We're going to go over the details. Let's take a quick look what's underneath the tarp. Look at this thing. Ooh. It's massive. Yes, if you thought I was picking up a little tiny set of bellows, no. This guy, in fact, this is bigger than the bellows that we need, but this is the one I could find online to go and pick up. I'm guessing it's earlier than 1900 and a good bit earlier than that, because by then they're making different kinds of fans to do forced air for industrial stuff. I'm not sure what this was used for. Probably blacksmithing. I hesitate to take this all apart, so we're going to try to get as much information out of this without taking off the leathers and all that. You know, if this was the right size for our blacksmith shop that we want, we would just rebuild this, because it's certainly in good enough shape for that. But it's too big, so we're just going to use this as our pattern. The top boards are pine. This section and the other boss that's on the other side needs to be out of stronger wood, so this is oak. This nozzle where all the air has to come in is all one piece of wood, and they bored a big hole in the back side of it, and then just the hole for the snoot here, the metal section for the front, and it's probably just one big conical hole, and this fits into it nice and tightly. I mean, after 100, 200 years, it's still in there really, really good. So the leather is super interesting. Now, Brandon does most of the leather work around here, but how the leather's fastened to the wood is one of the things I was looking at. And if there are some bellows online that you can kind of look at to get an idea, especially for that late 18th century, early 19th century. And this one's fastened on a little bit differently. Many of them seem to have a wooden strip that's a very, very thin wooden strip that's bent around the outside, that's nailed on to help hold the leather in place. This one, it's got an extra piece of leather, like a thicker piece of leather here that holds the leather on.
I think, without taking it apart, that the center board is going to be fixed. This right here, there's a hump here. I don't know if that's an actual iron hinge or if that's just a thick strap of leather to create the hinge on both sides.
It's equal on both sides. I mean, I would guess. Let me open it up a little bit. You feel those. And if we had the light, what do you think? Let me lift up.
It feels like leather because they're kind of bending there, where if it was an iron hinge, that part would
just
bend.
right. One of the reasons why we wanted to actually have a set of bellows to look at instead of just pictures is to know what's happening on the inside and exactly how they were made. Because especially if you're going to show people how they were made, it's a lot easier to have a pair of bellows so you can see what construction technique was like in the time period. So this isn't just an empty box on the inside. What is happening inside here?
So we've got a solid board on the top,
right,
and a solid board on the bottom, and then a solid board in the middle. Now in between these, there's a hole, so it'll be like a valve. So when you lift it up like that, it'll draw air in from the hole in the bottom and on the inside, because you can see there's a wooden flap on the inside, and that's going to be a valve to let air in here, but when it drops down, that valve will close, so it'll push air out the nozzle. And there's also this one. This is just a hoop, so that's all open all the way down through here. So that's just to hold its shape.
Right, just to keep that leather from bulging out and sucking in.
Here would be the bottom one, and I can feel on the inside there's some leather where there originally was a flap.
Right, so this is the very bottom board. You can still see the original paint. It's all worn off on the top of the every place else, but it had some sort of red paint. And you can see the wooden flap board on the sort of the second board here. This is the inner valve.
So you can see the size of this hole compared to it. When this thing would operate, it'd suck in a lot of air.
Valve construction is hard to tell from paintings and drawings, and this one really helps us understand. It's a wooden flap, and it's got a leather hinge on the back of it so that it's all sealed up instead of a metal hinge, which wouldn't seal. And then around on where that wooden flap comes down on the board, that's got a little strip of leather that goes all the way around to help it seal, so it's not just wood on wood, which would not, it would just leak air really quick. That soft leather would help seal it up. And then on the opposite side where it opens up, there's a little piece of leather that keeps the valve from opening too much so it doesn't flip all the way back and not close again. So we get a totally great idea about how that hinge was constructed. All the little leather pieces, all the little wood pieces, now we know how it works. So the hole size makes a difference to the volume, and go ahead and lift that up. And it's hard to stretch it completely out, but this is the board that it actually is set upon. This section here, everything sort of pivots on this. The lower section is only 1/3 the size of the upper section. So what you're doing when you pull down the crank, it lifts this up, forces air up into this upper chamber, and you can continue to push air into this upper chamber. So it's bigger than this lower chamber. And then gravity slowly, go ahead and let that down. Gravity slowly shrinks this down and continues to force air out so that you don't have to just keep pumping it to keep air continuing to move through the bellows here and into your fire pot where you want to do your blacksmithing. And you probably might use these for other sorts of industrial things too. Anything where you need forced air. Today we use giant air compressors and we don't think a thing about it. In the time period, you would have a set of bellows, either a giant set of bellows or small bellows. And if you look in some of the industrial encyclopedias of the time, you'll see little bellows in different parts of the buildings, sometimes up by the ceiling, big ones, small ones. Whenever you needed that little bit of constant airflow, you can't get highly compressed air like we use today, but if you need a constant airflow, this is how you would do it. So when we look at this side, again, we don't see any screws holding this together this direction. There's one of these pegs. So I'm not sure whether this is partially pegged together or whether they have some screws in here and they covered up the screw hole with pegs. I mean, I doubt that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's this front end where all the air has to come together. And you can see those growth rings. And what about the band here that's holding this all together, Brandon?
Oh, that band will be you know, to keep the this end grain from splitting.
Yeah, there is one split
time.
right here.
Yeah, and it is hammer welded together.
Yeah.
So this is a hand forged iron hoop. There's no rivets or pins in it. It's just hammer welded.
So, you know, this could have been put right up close to the fire pot, but there must have been, you know, like a ceramic channel, bricks or whatever to channel the air so that it didn't heat this tube up too much and just wear it out, or else it would have just corroded, rotted away instantly. So it's still in really good shape. Brandon, you deal with leather all the time. Tell me about what you think they were using here.
Oh, they were using most likely a vegetable tanned leather, really thin, really thin. Most likely cowhide.
The only reason why this doesn't work anymore is because animals got into it.
Yep. And that's typical with leather. And a lot of times bellows, the main structure of it was saved, and they just replaced the leathers because animals will chew through it. And leather, that time period, they used a lot of natural preserving and conditioning, so it was extra tasty. For critters.
I'll bet. So was the trip worth it? Definitely. I am amazed by this set of bellows. You know, we want to build a blacksmith shop right over there. We need to have a set of bellows. I wanted to be able to base our bellows on something that I knew about, I could touch and feel, and so this makes it totally possible to recreate those bellows exactly like they would have been in the 18th century, in the 19th century. So this is an amazing find, and to be able to touch it and feel it and know exactly what it was like, I am loving the ability to do that. If our blacksmith shop was huge, I would just rebuild these, but we don't have this much room, so we're gonna have to base our bellows on this for our construction technique, our shape, our sizes, how it's gonna be put together. This makes it so much easier than trying to base it from paintings or pictures in a museum. So this is gonna be tremendous. It is just such a privilege to be able to actually touch, feel, and check out a period set of bellows. We have so much to do out here on the 18th century homestead, lots of projects. Make sure to subscribe so you can see what's next on the homestead. Thanks for watching.